Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Just in Time Cafe's webinar. I'm Tracy O'Rourke, co-founder of the Just in Time Cafe, and I'm going to be your moderator today. And today's webinar is about solving complex problems in a virtual, lean environment, and more specifically, how the room where it happens is pixelated. And I'm going to let our guests explain that a bit more in just a moment. But before we do that, I would like to welcome our guests today, Brian Elms, Sabrina McLeod, and Kate Parmalee from the city of Port St Lucie. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brian, Sabrina, and Kate before we begin. So Brian Elms, he's the author of Peak Performance and Innovation and an innovation practice lead with Change and Innovation Agency. That's a lot of words. He is also an Urban Leadership Fellow at the University of Nevada. He served as the director of the Peak Academy for the City and County of Denver for more than 5 years. And Brian specializes in government innovation and process improvement, providing management expertise with humor, I might add, to government agencies and officials and nonprofits. Hi, Brian. How are you today?
I'm great, Tracy. Thank you so much for the invite. And this is going to be a great presentation because of my friends in Port St. Lucie.
I am so excited. So let me tell you a little about Kate Parmalee, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Innovation at the City of Port St. Lucie. Kate provides leadership with the city's strategic initiatives and performance measures of all city departments to ensure they are in alignment with the strategic goals of the city council and the city manager. In addition, she works to further the city council's strategic goal of a high-performing government organization through leading interdepartmental teams, including the strategic plan team, the grants and advocacy team, and innovation PSL, that's Port St. Lucie. And Kate has 20 years of experience in local government and nonprofit organizations. Wow, Kate, welcome to the cafe.
Thank you so much for having us. We have just learned so much from Brian, and we're so excited to learn more from you all. So thanks for having us today.
Thank you. And last but not least, Sabrina McLeod is the Strategic Initiatives and Grants Project Coordinator. And after graduating online during the pandemic with a master's in public health, she's returned to the city where she interned to work on city performance measures, grants, and department business plans. And since then, she's grown as a project coordinator for grants and innovation projects and plans to help coordinate innovation projects. Welcome, Sabrina.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I'm going to hand it over to these three amazing people in just a minute, but I have to cover a few housekeeping notes because that's also important. So you can ask questions anytime by entering them in the chat window, and we're going to try to get those answered throughout the webinar or after. Whenever I see them, I'll be monitoring that for the presenters today. We welcome your participation. We've got a few polls for you. And also this webinar is going to be posted on our Just in Time Cafe website so that you can view those at any time. So now it's our opportunity for us to hear who has really joined us. And so what we would like you to do is, if you haven't done it already, please join us for our first activity by sharing where you're from. So you guys have registered. We've got people registering from all over the world, and we'd love to know where you are right now. So go ahead and type where you're from, and let's just see where some of these people are. Okay, Sally. Hi, Sally from San Diego, and Becca from Boston. And we've got Lola from McKinney, Texas, Olga from Redwood City. We've got Ken from Harrisburg. We've got Andy, a fan from Denver, I'm sure. We've got Melissa from Little Rock, Salome from Port St. Lucie. All right. Got a couple of people from there. Stephen from Olympia. Cynthia, City of PSL, Port St. Lucie. All right. Kelly Ng from Tokyo, all the way from Tokyo to hear about your presentation. We also have Will from Sacramento, George from Washington, D.C., Peter from Milwaukee. You've got fans all over the country and the globe. How does that feel?
It's really nice to see people from the Berg, the old Harrisburg stomping grounds, some people from Denver, some people from Little Rock, Melissa's on here, I saw, and yeah, it's really awesome. Thank you for the folks from Port St. Lucie being here too. Hi, Philip.
All right, well, I'm going to hand it over now to Sabrina to go ahead and share their story.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So hello all. I'm here to talk to you all about how we were able to make in-person change and differences from being behind a computer screen. How the room where it happens, the training, the innovations, the change should be and is pixelated. The city of Port St. Lucie teamed up with Brian Elms and his Innovation Academy to tackle our swale problem of 4-year backlog to install new liner, a problem which has not been slowing down, but getting bigger with the city's growth. For those of you with the privilege of an underground drainage system, you might not know what a swale is. That's totally fine. A swale in its simplest is an above ground drainage system. So what you're seeing in this photo is a picture of a swale created with swale liner. It is in front of most of our houses and right-of-ways here in Port St. Lucie. The city actually has more than 1,185 miles of swale liner that are designed to collect, hold, and carry stormwater into larger canals and waterways, which did then discharge into the river. For reference, that's the same distance from Port St. Lucie to New York City via I-95, which is crazy. Yeah. So, we can continue. Here we go. And today we are going to discuss how we found the root cause of the issue, like the 4-year backlog, the process we took to start solving the problem, the innovations created by the employees to solve the problem, and the impact we made from those innovations. Finally, we'll tell you about the possibilities of using this entire process for the future. So I'll let Kate begin with explaining the issue.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sabrina. So this issue, so Port St. Lucie, just to give you a quick little background on Port St. Lucie before I explain the issue, on the back, in my background, you can see the St. Lucie River behind me. Port St. Lucie is a huge city. It's fairly young. It was formed in 1961, so we just celebrated our 60th birthday this year. It's 120 square miles. It's the 3rd largest city in terms of landmass in the city and the entire state of Florida, and it has just growing population. We were 330 people in the 70s. We're now over 200,000 people. It's kind of that classic Florida swampland story. We were built by developers in New York City. They drew the roads of our city from an office in New York without being on the land. So how our city was formed was kind of formed in an interesting way, that we were built without sidewalks, without a lot of infrastructure, without a downtown, so everything the city has had to do has required innovation to retrofit and to form, without a lot of revenue sources as well, because we didn't have those traditional economic bases. So we've had some challenges along the way. So it definitely requires innovation. So bringing us to this challenge, our swale liner system had been in existence, and of course we were experiencing tremendous demand because we have a huge construction boom going on in the city. And one of the ways we found out more about some of the issues that we were having with that system, as part of our strategic plan and becoming a high-performing government organization, is instituting a 311 system. And so we instituted a 311 system called 1PSL through our strategic plan, and started looking at what calls our residents are making, what are the top issues, so we can get ahead of issues. And consistently, month after month, we were seeing on our management reports and our leadership team meetings that drainage issues and block swales were the #1 request coming in through 1PSL. So, and actually in June of 2020, we had 220 requests for service, and it consistently was our top ranked issue. So of course, our city manager and our city council were saying, what can we do to solve this issue? And the residents were calling for good reason. I mean, there was a real issue going on. There is a 4-year backlog for any new swales or swale rework in our existing neighborhoods. So residents were getting frustrated. They were concerned about stormwater in front of their house and flooding concerns. And so we had this huge backlog, and that was what was facing us last summer. And as we were looking at how do we solve this big issue and this huge customer service issue for the city of Port St. Lucie. Next slide, please. And now Brian's going to share more about how we started to work and identify what the issue was at the heart of this.
Yeah, just like any good process improvement team, any innovation team, we really wanted to look what was happening. So we wanted to find the data that told us a story that could demonstrate some sort of correlation for what was happening or some sort of causality. And what we were working with was their entire data team and looking at what maps we had. Did we have GIS level information for who's requesting services, where is it being requested, how is it working, and then we actually had really, really cool data from the team providing the services. So what you're seeing right here is a map of Port St. Lucie, and inside this map, it's going to show you the red places have no swale liner next to them, and the blue places, it's a little bit further away. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see the actual crazy correlation that this is. These are the calls. These are the calls that people are making for their swale being blocked, their swale being old, their swale being damaged. The correlation between how close they were to a place that didn't have swale and the call volume is like looking at the exact same map. And we looked at this little piece where you can see that really high red, orange, white area. That was our major specific area to focus in. We wanted to see if we could attack that one place and at the same time attack the entire city to let people know what swale is, because what Sabrina just said in the very beginning is most people don't know what this is. And that was actually the biggest concern of our public works employees, because they were like, I don't think a lot of citizens know what this is and what it does and how it works. And so we need to make sure that when we're innovating, that we're putting information out that the citizen or the residents understand that this is an open air stormwater catchment. And this is an open air stormwater system, and it moves from the swale to the canals and out to the river and to the ocean. Now, for those of you who I've worked with and those of you who I haven't, this is the first time I ever did a complete and total virtual training, complete and total virtual workshop, complete and total, everything was done virtually. And that was the coolest part about it. We had dozens of people participating from multiple departments in our workshops. Every single person who joined us in the workshop took a training from me online. They went through all of these techniques that Sabrina is going to talk about for how we see a problem, how we talk about a problem, and how we solve a problem. In something that we created when I was working in Peak Academy, the See It, Say It, Solve It method. And our team walked through the See It, Say It, Solve It method by saying, okay, what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing the call volume. What are we seeing? We're seeing a lot of requests for services. What are we seeing? We kept asking what we were seeing so we could get all that information and then build out, well, what's happening? And that's what Kate was saying. You know, we have 4-year backlog. We have 200 requests for service in a given month. And we're seeing a significant cost driver in this, and we're not able to keep up. We were able to work completely across multiple departments through a matter of about 3 months. Each department figured out ways to help us solve the problem. We had over 50 different innovations that Sabrina is going to tell you about.
Yes, and I think, and you know, what it took really, I mean, we were extremely fortunate, heard Brian speak at a conference, and we brought him down to speak right before the pandemic in February of 2020. Brian came to the city of Port St. Lucie. We started talking to him about starting, and we wanted him to come down for trainings, and we were so excited to get started. We were new to, we had just had our first Lean Greenbelt team, Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt team had just gone through the process, but we were very new to innovation work in the city of Port St. Lucie, formal innovation training. So we thought meeting Brian, it just seemed like the perfect fit for our combination of what we were looking to do at the city. So we were getting ready to go, and then of course the pandemic hit, but we were so excited that we were able to pivot the Innovation Academy training with Brian as he built the training virtually and deliver it. And what I wanted to acknowledge Philip Corsi, who's actually listening on the webinar right now, who was our training coordinator hired during the pandemic, who actually conducted this training, learned the process with Brian, and conducted this training virtually and just jumped in fully to this process. So it's really was amazing. And so what it took with 60 plus employees. It took the PSL Forward Innovation Academy that Brian has developed. We had over 5 departments collaborating: our public works department, our building department, our neighborhood services department, our IT department, and our communications department, which we'll share with you momentarily, which just did an outstanding job and was immensely valuable. We had people talking to each other like never before. So when they say that there was more separation during the pandemic, for us, we had more collaboration than our organization has ever seen. The silos were broken down because we were able to get 40 people in a pixelated room when we could never have probably gotten those people together without significant coordination. They're in different city facilities. And so we had people solving problems next to each other that never have even met each other before in the city. We had over 20 meetings, multiple collaborative meetings held with call takers and field workers and anyone who touches the work related to swale maintenance. We just got that, that holistic perspective that really this virtual environment helped us do. And we were able to be flexible with delivering the training. People worked different shifts and there were different team structures. And it worked so well to be able to deliver this in mass, which I don't think we would have been able to do had we not gone to this virtual offering. And then over 50 innovations, which Sabrina is going to share. Sabrina, I just want to give her a special call out. Sabrina started with us and is an intern for the past 2 summers. The pandemic brought her here back to Port St Lucie from college. I know she finished her degree here, but we were able to, because she was home, bring her back on the city team. And she just took this by storm. She did an amazing job as the project manager for this project and will be just an integral member of the team on innovations moving forward. So Sabrina led the charge with the team, and we created over 50 innovations, including better scripts for one PSL call taker, standards of work for heavy equipment operators. And Sabrina is going to talk about that, which the team developed.
Before Sabrina does that, I just want to say, for people who don't understand the training or they don't understand how to implement it right away, Sabrina had never taken a process improvement course before working with us. She had never gone through green belt. She had never gone through black belt. She did both green belt and black belt courses through us. She also has never been a project manager, and she figured out how to run a project using all types of lean techniques, using all types of project management techniques. She is amazing. We had the director of public works and the deputy director of public works say, Sabrina runs the best meeting in the city. She runs the best projects in the city, and everyone wants to work with her. Great job, Sabrina. I can't say enough how impressed we are with you. And I know that you're about to go through all of our innovations, but we had to show our gushing love for you first.
We do. Best decision. So
Okay.
we said
Not needed. Thanks.
No, we're so having Sabrina just done an extraordinary job, and it's so inspiring. It teaches us all. She's our in-house expert.
Anyone else hot?
So what Sabrina's going to share with you kind of and just to give you the major goals of, as she describes with you all of these innovations, is that we wanted to increase time in the field to create innovations that increase team productivity and decrease time in the yard. We were trying to find ways to, as you can see with a 4-year backlog, how do we get these crews out more in the field so they can be doing more of the work that's needed and find that waste elsewhere in their day? To stop the call by meeting the need. We don't want people calling City Hall, because we want them to have their needs met. And so we tried to create innovations that resolved the issues so they didn't need to make that call. To get ahead of the storm of Port St Lucie, of course, is in Florida. We have hurricanes, we have a rainy season. And so we know it's like clockwork. Every year the rains are going to come about May. So we're trying to get ahead of that storm by preparing with our messaging and planning to keep our work productivity high and call volume low, and then to hold the standard, to hold all of the standards for our innovations and make them simple, easy to learn and teach, and repeatable. And that's what we've really appreciated about this approach that Brian has taught us, that it's very accessible to the entire organization. We can take the entire organization through these programs, and we can teach all employees can benefit from this. And I think Sabrina is going to share more about the innovations that we created.
Yeah, so let's get to the meat of what we've been talking about. So the innovations, to start reaching these goals, the employees created their own innovations. Again, they took the Innovation Academy online, and we asked them just simple questions like, where is a problem? What's causing you trouble? What do you see, right? And so many of the innovations were created, one being checklist. Turns out people check breaks differently, or unfortunately just skip the step. So one field worker decided to create a checklist for that. Another was creating a cleaning schedule and a checklist for the Kaiser machine. These are innovations that are aimed to make sure our employees don't go out to the sites with faulty equipment, and also save them time and allow them thus to like put down more liner. And then we have other innovations where just as simple and as effective. So for one employee decided to create an employee check-in and check-out board that said like what equipment was in use, what's still in the warehouse, what's broken. This board helped to solve the problem of field workers going out into the job site with a broken shovel or something else, because maybe no one had initially bothered to check or wrote it down. Well, now there's like no excuse. You're able to see like, oh, this doesn't work. And then another field worker was like, I want to just have a diagram of what the site looks like. So he just literally took a piece of yellow scrap paper and just roughly drew it out, and it roughly like gave some directions on it. And then what's great is that since this was a collaborative effort, he was able to work with someone who has like the software to actually make this into a proper diagram that can then be used as a standard of work for all employees. So then now if we have like a new employee to come in, they can just say, oh, a new employee to come into the crew, they can just say, oh, this is how the site should look. Oh, this is great. So that was another, just a great, simple innovation. And then here we go. Yep. So then other innovations were from our call takers. So one was, like Kate said, improving the 1PSL scripts. So initially, if you call our 1PSL system, you get the same response when it comes to swales. It also just helps explain to the residents that it's totally normal to see water in your swale after 3 days, right? If it's been raining back to back, it's even more normal if it's going to be in there for like maybe a week. Explaining that to residents in our scripts, again, really just getting that messaging out to them helped improve the process. We also updated our 1PSL request types. Before, we just had block swale. Now we have block swale residential versus block swale new construction. This made it easier on the back end for our inspectors to know that, like, oh, when I'm going out to this address, it's to have a conversation with a resident or a contractor. Again, it's just, again, improving the process and then increasing their time to start actually laying down more swale. And then the Innovation Academy itself was really an innovation, right? Like Brian said, it was done completely virtually for our call takers and for our field workers who didn't have access to a computer. They went into a training room with a mask and socially distanced, and then Brian, myself, Philip, we were all always on that screen as well that you see in front of them. Brian's in the picture. And again, always still having that like virtual connection, right? Other innovations were honestly just made better with our communications department. They were really MVPs, I call them, of our swale material, really great. Public Works recognized the problem with their contractors, with them not understanding of where to put things to not block the swales, right? If something is blocking the swale, then water doesn't flow, which leads to like the other neighbors, having all this backed up water in their area. So contractors were a huge issue. And so they decided to start attending their meetings that they have with the building department. And then another innovation was just giving them a diagram of what the site should look like, right? So it needs to have like a culvert here, it needs to have the dumpster further away, like this, like that, with information on the back. It is just a beautiful graphic done by communications that really explained to the contractors what a proper site looks like. And it was easy for inspectors when they went out to hand them this material. Similarly to the door hanger, you also see here on this screen, this was done by a communications department with Public Works input. So now they have something that they can physically give to residents when they go out and they're like, oh, I still have water in my area. Well, actually, no, it's supposed to be there. This is how it works. Here's more information. Check our website. We have more information, which brings me to the next innovation, the website. Communications really, again, absolutely killed it. So now if you go to cityofpsl.com/swale, the first thing you see is a video about what are swales and how to maintain your swale. And it has information about our frequently asked questions that have been updated by the team. So if you go and see the frequently asked questions, all that information actually mirrors the 1PSL script. So if you call 1PSL, you get the same information that's on the website, which is a thing that's also really great. And we also updated our hold messages. So if you call 1PSL, you'll hear a message about swales. At the bottom of the website, there's now an opportunity to sign up for a swale newsletter, so you can get more information about what's happening with swales or how you can do more, things like that. Even, again, these were all innovations, ideas that came up with by the employees, and then just different departments helped to really push it through, right? So someone came up with the idea of having the mayor talk about it, because when the mayor talks about it, it gets noticed. So someone asked the communications, and communications got it to the mayor, and the mayor actually had a Coffee with the Mayor series specifically on swales. He talked about swales for like 25 minutes, which I'm doing now, and it's also a feat. So mind you, each of these innovations were created by employees. No one told them to do them. It was done by multiple departments. And you can tell that it really made a difference in our city, because these 5 posts alone got over 25,000 impressions. It was, we talked about swales in our neighborhood meetings, which are like our neighborhood and community engagement meetings that are done in different parts of the city, which was also really great. And all of these innovations, eventually, they made an impact. So by November, there was a 50% reduction in calls compared to an earlier rain event. And this was during the rainy season, which is no easy feat. There was a change in how residents started to view swales. They're starting to see it as now it's their responsibility, which means less calls to City Hall. One crew leader saved, like I said, 20 minutes in the morning thanks to their innovations. I know 20 minutes may not seem like a lot, but 20 minutes over a day, within a week, for a month, or for a year, it's a huge time savings that eventually leads to huge cost savings, right? And these innovations hit the goals that we came up with, which was increasing the time in the field, stopping the call by meeting the need, getting ahead of the storm, and holding the standard. And so with these innovations, these great achievements that were, again, completely done by our employees, it wasn't management, they came up with the ideas, everyone just worked to help implement them. I'll let Kate talk about the possibilities.
Thanks, Sabrina. Great job. I know it's just great hearing. It's just amazing what this team did in just such a short amount of time was just incredible. And we just see the possibilities to be really endless for the organization. And the city of Port St. Lucie is trying to build a culture of problem solvers and innovators. And I think that this is just an example of how there's so much untapped talent and potential throughout the organization. And I think this process is really just unlocking the talent of our employees and the insights of our entire organization. When we get everybody working together and you see the power of a unified message. I mean, here, I love this picture of, this is our Crosstown Parkway. We had a swale message with people, like thousands of cars were passing by every day. I mean, we just really flooded, no pun intended, the market with this message, and just got that across, where we really, just percolated this. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop. But it's really it's been very powerful to see that. And so we think this is just the beginning of this. This was our first major innovation project as a city. We have learned so much from Brian, and we're going to keep learning from Brian and working with him on a lot of different projects moving forward. Sabrina is going to keep managing projects as well as we move forward with Philip Corsi, our training coordinator, and going through the PSL Forward Innovation Academy. So we plan to do a number of training opportunities for employees anyone who wants to learn about innovation can participate in that. And then the city council and their strategic plan this year, they were so excited about this innovation project that they have targeted at least 2 major innovation projects each year as a city council strategic goal, which is great that they really do embrace this. But we're going to be doing, of course, a lot more than that. One of the things that we came to the city council with, normally we try not to allocate additional resources when we do these innovation projects, but in this case, this process really unlocked an issue that had not been fully articulated yet to the council, the need. And this, we were able to then go to the council and very specifically say an investment of $2 million in this area would really significantly address it. We brought it to the council at our winter retreat, and they unanimously approved it without any debate. It was just a slam dunk in terms of approval, and it just shows that when you really go through this process and do the work, it really helps the policymakers make better decisions because they can invest. They know they're investing funding into areas of great need. So we're going to continue to do process and performance improvement using this. When we approached this Innovation Academy, we really saw the issue as being, I oversee performance measurement for the city. We want to not just go to a department and ask them for their metrics. We want to help them find out what's their problem, what are their issues, how can we help them improve performance, how can we improve their problem solving. We have a lot of tough issues in the city, as I explained, given our history. So because of that, we think there's more support needed for employees to solve these problems and help to grow and just really take advantage of all of the amazing talent and help everyone grow through this process. We are also working to support these teams through grants and advocacy as well. I know Salome Ongrad's on our call as well. She's another member of our strategic innovations team. And so we try to see what can we do to help departments learn from either through training, how do we collaborate, how do we pair people together, and then how do we get them resources to be able to continue to improve their performance. And then we're just going to keep on working on targeted innovation projects that are included in our strategic plan. We so appreciate that our city council is committed to strategic planning, is committed to looking at becoming a high-performing organization, as is our city manager. And we just really think this helps us move the organization forward and creates the kind of culture that is necessary for a city that's rapidly growing and evolving. And we just are excited to see where this will take us for the next 6 years. So we just thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of the Port St. Lucie story with you. And this is our stories kind of just beginning. So we're excited to be learning more from your training offerings as we grow as a city and to keep growing as a team and learning from Mr. Brian Elms as well. So thank you.
Wonderful. We have time for questions, which is awesome if you guys are okay with that. So my question is, I think it was Kate that said this was your first foray into process improvement. So you hadn't done process improvement before. You hadn't tried it before in the past.
We had one small Greenbelt team that went through a training that did it through that training. We had not tackled like a organization-wide, huge project of this level or magnitude before. It was the first. And, our public works director actually said, he was a new public works director at the time. And he said, I would never have understood that. You just saved me years of understanding what was going on in my department, because this kind of process, you just learn so much. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. So, and what would you say was the biggest challenge for doing this project? I mean, besides the pandemic and a hurricane too. So what were some of the things that were challenging for the organization? Any thoughts around that?
Well, I have thoughts, but I want to hear Sabrina and Kate's first.
Yes.
I'll defer to Sabrina, as the closest person to this project. Sabrina, what are your thoughts on the biggest challenges?
I actually think it went really well. We split a lot of the groups into different cohorts, right? So we weren't doing it all at once, so we weren't we say 60 employees. It wasn't like we were dealing with 60 employees innovations and trying to implement it all at once. We did it in waves, which was really good. So we had we did 10, and then we did another 10, and then we did another 10, and then we did another 10. So it really wasn't just a huge complete undertaking, which I thought was really good. Some of the challenges were shooting for the moon, right? We really wanted to do some crazy, I know we were trying to maybe we were oh, let's try to get it on our news station, right? But we were like, oh, maybe we can do a song or something like that, or really maybe high schoolers can do a whole idea around swales, and these are really cool ideas, but also we had to is this really the market that we need to hit? So I think that was definitely a challenge as well. It's we want people to go hog wild with their innovations and then later say no, right? We don't want it to be like no and then it never come up. So I think that was a bit of a challenge.
I've never heard someone use the term hog wild with innovations, but I can tell you that Sabrina wrote a poem about Swale and performed said poem to one of our core groups. And Stephen had a question about that, like who was core and doing the big picture stuff. And we had, if I remember correctly, there were about 20 of us that met about twice a month. And that included the different groups in public works. It included the different groups in the communication team, and then it included some call takers as well, which was so neat. I thought that was that was really, really impressive. I would actually say that the biggest struggle that I have in any type of innovation program or any time that we do this is people's belief. They believe that they do not have control over the process. They believe that they can't make a dent. They believe that changing the script on the phone calls doesn't make a change. They believe updating the website doesn't do anything. And that belief holds us back because that doesn't happen, right? Like, we know that if you say the same thing as a call taker as what we say in the field, less calls take place. If you can't actually call a bunch of people and get different answers because it's the same answer everywhere, less calls take place. And we know this because it's worked in every city I've ever done this in. If everyone knows the same information and the most information, you help your customer immediately, right? That is the wildest piece. You just get them going immediately. And there were times, I think, Sabrina, you would probably agree, or Kate, you would probably agree, like it started like dragging. We were like, ugh. And I think in every process improvement, in every innovation workshop like this, I mean, it was 3 months long, right? Like we had to constantly bring it back in. And Sabrina did such a cool job by going through what we had accomplished and then talking about where are we at with this? What's going on? What's the hang up? And then no one said, oh, Tracy didn't do her stuff again. No one was like judging. We were trying to figure out, okay, Tracy, how do we get you there? How can it happen? What do we need to do to help you make it happen? And if you're the wrong person, point us to the right direction. I've never seen a communications team do this the way they did it. They were like, we need a video. Yeah, we need a video. We need this. I was like, yeah, we do. And they just kept making them and making them and making them. And they really saw process improvement on their side as their, this is how we process improve. We put out better content. And they totally did. And then the guys in the field, I think that was really cool too. They work this every single day. They know it. They're the subject matter expert. And my job is to help them do what they're great at. That's it. I'm facilitating. They're awesome, right? I'm an awesome facilitator, period. And my job is to make sure that they can be awesome at their job.
Very cool. I would love to shift gears and talk a little bit about that because I know you're awesome too, Brian. And so we have a couple of polls. So I think we'd like to gather some information from some audience, from some of the audience, and then we can talk a little bit about the approach, the virtual piece, what worked, what didn't, those kinds of things. So how about we launch our first poll? Would that be okay?
Oh yeah, are you telling me to quit talking?
No, I never want you to stop talking, Brian. All right, there's a poll out there. How would you rate virtual process improvement for your experience out there? So 5 is the highest. I'm going to say that is super awesome. And 1 is not so hot and anything in between. So go ahead and vote on the virtual process improvement. We're going to see what your experience has been. And I'm sure people are very curious around what this looks like. So let me ask you a question. So Sabrina and Kate, before we share all the results and while we're waiting for people to participate, how would you have rated virtual process improvement before participating in this with COVID on a 1 to 5 scale?
I probably would have said like a 2. I mean, honestly, like I really would have, like we had not even had the technology implemented until COVID hit as an organization. So this was like a brand new tool for us.
Mhm.
So I had zero experience with virtual process improvement. What about you, Sabrina? What do you think?
Well, I had zero experience with process improvement either. So as far as I'm concerned, it was virtual. So, I was like, that's the way it is, right?
Yes, good. All right, let's see the results. All right, so 58% gave it a 4, followed by 3 for 21%. And then only 16% rated it 5. So that's really surprising to me too. I would have expected people to rate this lower for virtual process improvement because of what you guys said. There hasn't been a lot of experience. What's interesting is when COVID hit, we got huge surges of how do we do this stuff virtually? So I think in June timeframe last year, we were doing all kinds of virtual training, virtual tools, virtual Kaizen events. How do you do this stuff virtually? Because there was a huge appetite for it. But this is telling me that people have actually had some experience with it. So I would love to hear, Brian, what were your thoughts on the virtual, doing virtual? We have a question for you in particular, and maybe we can hear from Sabrina and Kate as well. How do you keep your audience engaged during these virtual meetings? And what were some of the things you guys did to make this virtual process improvement happen? Who wants to talk first?
Sabrina.
Sure, I can say. I know when we first got it started, I also was like learning as well. So I was wondering how this was going to go, and Brian. One of the things that Brian did is that everyone had to bring an innovation, right? Everybody had to have an idea, and I really think that keeps the engagement. Because you can't just say, I don't really know. We would ask like, well, what's the problem, or what do you see? What do you do every day that maybe it's not flowing the way it should? And so people always came up with, even if it was something like, well, the paper I use, I'm not happy with. Well, then, I mean, that wasn't really a thing, but I'm saying if that was an example, then they would be like, well, what can we do to make that better, right? So it was something as simple as just like everyone had to bring one innovation each time we met. And so the next time we met, we talked about that past innovation that they said, and then we were given a new one. And we kind of just kept building and building and building. And then if people kept having multiple ideas, we were like, maybe we can improve upon the other innovation. So that's something that really kept it like moving, and also really interesting as well, because once we got to the end, we were trying to figure out like crazy things to keep this process improvement going. So I think that was like really good.
Yeah, I agree, Sabrina. Yeah, I think that well, like I said, like before the pandemic, I would have rated it at like a 2 for virtual training, but after it's like a 5. To me, I felt like we felt so connected, because Sabrina did such a good job keeping the meetings going, following up on assignments, making sure everyone kind of stayed engaged. But I think the biggest thing was that people saw change. People saw the multi-million-dollar investment from the city council at the end of this project. They saw great materials coming out. They felt understood. They felt heard. They felt like we really talked. I think everyone's ideas were valued. I just feel like the biggest thing to keep it going is that people saw great outcomes, and this was great to have this be our first major innovation project out of the gate, to have some really great traction in the organization. That's so important for us to have the momentum to continue in, and for people, the next team, to trust that even though this is like a vulnerable process to go through, to kind of say, like, let me open up my problem and let you all from different departments like see what's going on in my department. It's not easy for the departments to feel comfortable. And so for them to see that they're going to be supported and that they're going to get great outcomes at the end, I think that's what you use to kind of keep the momentum.
Yes, I agree. Having a success story to show it does work, and it works here is huge. But Brian, I want to also hear from you. Tell us, I mean, you were the master designer behind, okay, I know the city of Port St. Lucie, and I have an idea of what we want to accomplish. And so what were some of the things that you were really thoughtful about in terms of bringing this into the virtual environment? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I 90% of my work now is virtual, if not 99. And I keep pushing people that this is the future. We should be able to work collaboratively, amazingly create relationships. And I know people are saying that's not the case. I have seen tremendous impact with our virtual work. We're about to hit 800 people through our trainings in the last 7 months. Like, it's insane. Your name of this, the Just-in-Time Cafe, is so perfect because I think we think of training like sitting in front of Zoom and letting someone stand and deliver in front of Zoom. And we don't do that. We don't do that well. And so I created a just-in-time exact, this is what we're going to do. These are the innovations we're going to talk about. This is how we're going to do it. And we use those techniques in short incremental bites, right? Like the training that the people went through, they did that self-paced. It's a self-paced training interactively with me. I'm standing in front of this the whole time, but I'm making it a activity and it's fun. By the end of your training, you have to do an innovation. So you have to make a process improvement while you're going through the training. And I think that has a tremendous difference in what we're doing. I also did not run traditional workshop like a Kaizen. We met for an hour, talked about what we wanted to change, left, came back the next week, met for an hour, and talked about what we were doing. It was incredible. And we did not force people to sit on Zoom for 8 hours and do a 8-hour Kaizen. I'm not doing it. I think that's too difficult. I believe that people work really well when they have the ability to work independently and then share it back with the group. And they did that. And that's the decentralized socialization, democratized innovation that works really well, right? Sabrina does something, Tracy does something, Kate does something. We've democratized the problem, we've democratized the solution, and now everyone is a part of it. So you see 50 innovations. Well, 50 innovations were done by 50 different people, not 4 people.
Yeah.
They were 50 people. And that sort of democratization of problem solving is what I love to see. And I think it's highly effective, ridiculously effective, because it's like, you know, innovation with a sledgehammer, right? You're like bringing it to everyone. And I think that's how we kept people engaged. You have to do something.
Yes.
Do the thing.
I love that. And obviously it did work. I mean, you took an approach and you got a lot of people to participate, 50 innovations by 50 people. You know, Elizabeth and I have been in the online space for a really long time, about 8 years. And same thing, when COVID hit, we took our whole Greenbelt program at UC San Diego and we chunked it out just like you did. We're not going to put people in a room for 8 hours. I mean, we want to kill them with boredom? No. And, you know, the distractions increase. And so we had to chunk it out as well, 3-hour sessions over a period of 8 weeks, as opposed to 8 hours of, you know, being locked to your desk. And I really like the other piece that you said too, Brian, is application. So learn it, do it. What'd you learn? And I love what you also said. You incorporated feedback and follow-up. So it wasn't just training. Now go make it happen. We'll see you later. It's okay. Here's what to do. Now go do it. Now come back and tell us how it went, or if you need more help. And I love that circle that you built into the training as well. Okay, we have a question about using the word innovation from Sally. Innovation tends to imply big organization-wide change. Using this for your efforts, did you experience any ideation or mind shift issues with generating or implementing improvements?
Well, I use the term innovation specifically instead of saying process improvement. And I think people want to be seen as innovators more than they want to be seen as process improvers. And so I use that frame specifically. I also know that there are 3 types of innovation. There is a step-by-step or an incremental innovation. There's adjacent innovation, which is if one department does something really well, they teach another department how to do it. And then there's the breakthrough innovation. And most people don't recognize as incremental as an innovation until I talk about that. And that comes from the book Serial Innovators. And in the book Serial Innovators, they break down like the people who know how to do incremental innovation are typically the ones who come up with the biggest bangs. They are the ones who can do the breakthrough. But if you don't recognize that doing a small change, making a checklist is an innovation, then you'll never be able to reduce your phone calls in half in the middle of a hurricane. It's too big of a leap. So I use it very specifically in this world. And I know it's probably overplayed, and I know everyone wants to be an innovator. I hear that, but I also know the feeling that people get when they hand in a checklist and I call them an innovator, it's a different world. And they do shift their mind. It becomes more of a growth. And to me, that's the best, right? Watching people like Sabrina go through a class, implement the technique, and then start teaching 20-year veterans of the city the technique that she just learned online, and then pulling them through it until the innovation is completed. That's incredible, right? Like that's to me better. I do this because I love watching people like Sabrina get to do those things. I don't do this because I want like Port St. Lucie to have the best city. Of course I do. Like that's the thing. But the people there, right, in what Alison Bell calls the herocrats, right? These are herocrats. Sabrina is a herocrat. Kate is a herocrat. Salome is a herocrat. Philip's a herocrat. These Port St. Lucie employees are incredible. And that's why I do this work, is to bring that into it.
Absolutely.
And I just would like to add to that, that now after Brian's describing these three different types of innovations, I would say like Apple, their iPhone was like their breakthrough innovation, right? But all the other iPhones since then are like the incremental innovations. It's not a breakthrough after you had the iPhone, right? So I think it's kind of like the same mindset for like the city's innovations. Like our breakthrough is like what's happening in the city right now, and like we're building incrementally on what we've already done, right? So
I love it. So tell us, we're almost out of time now. So if anybody has any more questions, now would be your opportunity to put any more in the chat window. But my question is, what advice would you have for maybe a government organization, even another city, to get started on process improvement? What advice would you have? Besides maybe go through Brian's training.
Yes.
I do highly recommend going through Brian's training for sure. I think that definitely it's one of the fastest way to bring innovation to your organization is really to be honest, to work with Brian. But I do think part of it is just, I think what we learned through this is empowering the departments and creating this culture. Because what I found when I first started, you start talking to departments about, their process improvement. No one really kind of wants to let you in at first when you're trying to, and I think what Brian has taught us is that we shouldn't be solving problems for another department. It really needs to come from the employees in that department, that they own the change, they own the process improvement. So how can we support them through the training opportunities, but also just creating more dialogue and collaboration? I just feel like creating those spaces where people feel like they can talk about problems and they can be open about challenges they're facing, and making it not taboo that there's a problem, that there's an issue in a system. I think making it almost like we know there's always going to be system improvements to make, and you don't have to hide that issue. It's an issue that we want to tackle. So I really feel like making that kind of a neutral territory, that it's okay to have an issue, and actually we want you to bring the issues forward to support you, and we're going to create solutions. We're here to support your journey basically through that issue. Sabrina, what do you think? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I also agree. I think if people just want to get started with process improvement, I think it's just take the time, right? To do it. I think a lot of people were apprehensive about, I have to be at this meeting every 1 hour every week. Like granted, that is a lot of time, yeah. But we're trying to make a difference and improve. And then after this 3 months is over, then we shouldn't have to have these meetings, right? Because we will have all these processes together. So I think like if you really want to get started, like take the time to really like say, like, look at this problem and say, I know we've kept pushing it off, but don't like push it off. Like now you try to figure out how you can make it better. And then you won't have to worry about it. So I think that's what I can say.
And I think finding a good issue to focus on too, like this was like our number one customer service issue. So I think sometimes too, I feel like finding the right fit for a problem too, that we can kind of tackle that really I think that aligns well with what your overall goals are as an organization. I think that really makes it more meaningful to the leadership and to the team. And so I think finding that right issue too helps you kind of get started, and then you get some wins, and then we can kind of keep moving.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming to the cafe today and sharing your success story. And Brian, thank you for having your clients come and share their story. We'd be happy to have any additional stories you want to share as you get going on your journey. And I'm going to just share a couple of free opportunities, mostly free opportunities for people to get some additional training. So we have coming up June 10th. It's a webinar featuring Chris Chapman. Chris has over 20 years of experience and is a senior lean transformation coach at Chapman Lean Enterprise. The webinar is called How to Use Lean Thinking to Create an Anti-Racist Organization. And so this is obviously in the wake of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Many companies have tried to become more socially responsible, and they've made public statements denouncing systemic racism, donated money to social justice organizations, and doubled down on training more employees on unconscious bias. Now what? So he's going to talk about what also can be done to transform organizations and to produce racial equity. It's going to be a good one. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our next one after that is on June 24th. And that is a webinar featuring me. I'll be talking about how to use task cards, also known as kabishibai boards, that's the Japanese word, to help build better leader behaviors, because changing culture is hard and building new behaviors is even harder. And if your leaders are struggling to build consistent new behaviors like initiating huddles, leader process walks, A3 coaching sessions, you can come to our 1-hour webinar and figure out if that will work. And on our next slide is our very own Elizabeth Swan is going to be putting on an improv workshop on July 16th. This is a really fun workshop. You don't want to miss it. And it's funny because improv is not about being funny, but the workshop was fun and people were funny. I've been to the workshop. I am not an improv person, but I've learned a lot from Elizabeth. Improv is problem solving on stage. So she really talks about how improv can provide you with the tools to bring you more authenticity in your interactions. Don't forget to come to that workshop. And we also have UC San Diego's Lean Six Sigma Leader course starting June 1st, running for 11 weeks. And this is really, if you find that your people are jumping to solutions all the time instead of solving problems, are they throwing money and people at problems instead of applying process improvement? Are they making decisions based on opinions, not data? Then we need to really focus on optimizing leadership abilities to build a continuous improvement culture. So if you want to build an army of problem solvers, you want to join this course. And lastly, our latest podcast is out. Very excited for Brian Hand and Lily Angelosi of UCSD Health. They joined us at the Just in Time Cafe, and they're sharing how they're applying lean to save lives and to distribute vaccines very efficiently. So definitely have a listen there as well. And that brings us to the end of the webinar. Don't forget to subscribe at the JIT Cafe. And thank you so much for joining us today. And again, thank you so much to Sabrina, Brian, and Kate. Any last words or words of wisdom that you want to share before we sign off?
Well, thank you, Tracy, for this awesome opportunity. I really appreciate it. And really, it is easy to start this in your organization. I never thought it would work virtually, and we totally pulled it off. And I've now pulled it off in about 10 other cities over the course of the last year. And it's totally possible. So anyone who's interested, please get in contact with me. And everyone who has taken part in our webinar today does get a free training from me. We will have that training and that code available for you shortly. We should have it ready by July 1st, and I will email you the link, and we will give you a coupon, and you get to get into the training for free. So I can't wait to hear your feedback after taking it. Thank you all.
Do I get to go to the training for free too?
It's totally free, yeah. Just for you.
All right, that's awesome.
Tracy, do you know how nervous I would be if you take my training? Like it would be like an emotional roller coaster, but yes, please take it.
You are so funny. All right, you guys, thank you so much. We loved it. I love it. And thank you everybody for coming to our webinar today. Bye-bye.